evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is the Factivist report for
July 3rd.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
I'm all confused, folks. Monday, July 3rd, 2023. And our topic tonight is the lack of representative government that we are currently living under here. So let me just explain something to you. There is no representative government in fascist rule. And right now, the House is owned by fascists, and whatever's in the Senate that is GOP, they're all fascist too. If they are not speaking out and standing up, they are fascist by default. That's the way this works here in America. So here's Dave.
Okay. So let's just get right into it. By the way, happy Independence Day for those of you guys that actually think that you're free. God bless you. Have your hot dog or whatever. But if one person isn't free to do what they want as a consenting adult, no one is free. Just so you know. And we'll talk some about all of this starting right now. I remember when we started this whole thing, we complained about the lack of representative government, and we complained about the Democratic Party. And we're going back to Biden in his first 100 days and all of that, because we're going to talk about briefly what he did just by his hiring of his cabinet and his staff in terms of representation. Then this is the first thing that he could do, is promising and delivering on the most diverse administration ever. And also, and I have another article here talking about all of the diverse judges that he appointed as well. So I understand that some people are going to say, hey, this is identity politics. No, it really isn't, as long as you are, number one, hiring qualified people who represent everyone and who take everything into account. So 58% of Biden's agency appointees were women at that point. There were 16 high-level firsts. Kamala Harris, the first woman, Black person, and person of South Asian descent to be vice president. Janet Yellen, the first woman to be Secretary of the Treasury. Deb Haaland, first Native American to serve in the cabinet. Cecilia Rouse, first woman of color to chair the Council of Economic Advisors. Catherine Tai, first woman of color to serve as a U.S. trade representative. Avril Haines, first woman to lead U.S. intelligence. Wendy Sherman, first woman to serve as Deputy Secretary of State. Kathleen Hicks, Deputy Secretary of Defense. Karine Jean-Pierre, first openly gay female person, lesbian person to serve as the Vice Presidential Chief of Staff. Now, she's now the press secretary. Rachel Levine, first openly transgender person to be confirmed by the Senate. And you know that there was a lot of blowback on that one. Pete Buttigieg, first openly LGBTQ person to serve in the cabinet. Again, he's been attacked over and over again. As when was the last transportation secretary you heard any criticism or blowback on? So
well, none of them were gay. So
right. Alan Mayorkas, first Latino and immigrant to serve as Secretary of Homeland Security. Bacara, first Latino to serve as Secretary of Health and Human Services. Wally Adeyemo, first Black man to serve as Deputy Secretary of Treasury. And for the first time, communications team was all women. So I understand you might say that that's identity politics. Not if they're qualified.
Let's talk about that term identity politics.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that shit? That's a
Let's talk
right-wing
about it.
construct. Okay, that's been a right-wing construct since 2016. Get over that. Okay, it is called inclusiveness. It is called there are more than just straight white people in the world. There are more than just straight white people in this country, and everybody deserves representation. It's as fucking simple as that.
So here's a quote. It's not just enough to have someone in the literal room where decisions are made. It's about that person's voice being equal to everyone else in the room. Pretty much says it all. The ABA in July of 2022 said that Biden's judicial appointees are by far the most diverse.
By the way, all of this stuff is everything that the GOP does not want to see.
Right.
You need to understand that.
This is what the
right extremists.
This is what the radical left is. Representative government.
Right.
This is what they don't want. As opposed to what they do want, this is Trump. And this is a pretty good article by The Atlantic.
As is almost everything they write, frankly.
An oral history of Trump's bigotry. From the fact, one of the very first things he said is, "We've never been racist." Meanwhile, you have black staff members running away from Trump as he's entering office. He's made let's see here. So the first quotation from Donald Trump ever to appear in the New York Times came on October 16th of 1973. Trump was responding to charges filed by the Justice Department alleging racial bias at his family's real estate companies. This is absolutely, or they are absolutely ridiculous. Trump said, "We have never discriminated and we never would."
That must be lie 30,575.
Right. In the years since then, Trump has assembled a long record of comment on issues involving African Americans, Mexicans, Hispanics, Native Americans, Muslims, Jews, immigrants, women, people with disabilities. Statements have also have been reflected in his behavior from public acts like placing ads calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino men accused of rape who were later shown to be innocent, to private preferences. When Donald and Ivana come to the casino, all bosses would order all Black people off the floor. So, Trump also engaged in something called birtherism. Obama couldn't possibly be a real president because he's a black man.
He was the one that started all of that, by the way.
Yep.
Before he was even in politics.
Yep. Now, let's get something straight, though. Trump did not make the GOP racist. The New York Times, and apparently they gave me an ad wall again, so I'm not even going to bother. But there is an article, and I'll put it in, where it's an opinion piece where they talk about the long history of racism in the GOP, where I believe it was Marco Rubio who said, "We don't want Black people to take the money from other people. We want them to earn their own." But he didn't say Black people. He was about to say Black people, and he pulled it back.
So let me just say what Trump did, though.
Yep.
Trump was the gasoline on the fire.
He was the gasoline on the fire.
He normalized all of this. He brought it to the mainstream. He has normalized white supremacy in America. He has opened the door again to, Klan behavior, really.
Right. Now, this is an opinion piece by Jennifer Rubin, one of the friends of this show. Just how racist is the MAGA movement? This survey measures it. It basically, I know we don't typically do surveys, but there were certain questions that measure how racially biased a group could possibly be, and the right-wing Republicans were off the chain. So it's not a surprise. Now, just because you're a Republican and you appoint an African American doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily do the right thing. Clarence Thomas was able to attend Yale. Yes, he was able to attend Yale partly, in part, because of affirmative action. And at one point, he said affirmative action was critical for society. He also complained about having to need affirmative action because he felt like he was looked at like he didn't belong there and all that stuff because he was a black man.
But now, you see, let's fast forward all these years later. He's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of little benefactors that help him, get by and live the good life. And for people like Clarence Thomas and for people like Tim Scott, another one I pointed out, when you've got a wealth of $22 million, you know what? You're not discriminated against because you're an elite at that point. Doesn't matter what the fuck color you are. You got money.
Ketanji Brown Jackson attended Harvard, and she actually recused herself from one of the cases.
Something that Clarence Thomas would
never do.
Understanding of what it is, honestly.
Yep.
She has a moral conscience.
By the way, we will talk about this. I want to kind of talk about this later to see exactly how much damage the court's going to do, maybe, like after it's all done. But what I will say is that should Clarence Thomas have recused himself as well in this case? Would it have mattered? No. Affirmative action still would have been dismantled, at least for now.
There are other cases that Clarence Thomas should have recused himself from, though. Many.
Absolutely.
Other cases.
One of the things that Deb pointed out to me, I couldn't find it, was at one point, Sandra Day O'Connor said that at one point, affirmative action might not be needed.
Maybe in 25 years.
In 25 years.
We won't need affirmative action.
And that was something that was used. Well, here's the thing. The Supreme Court just upheld a provision prohibiting racial gerrymandering in Alabama. And there are things that are falling into place, and there are redistricting that may happen. And I'm still going to talk about that at some point. But I wanted to say, this is a problem. There are people, if one person isn't represented, whether it be by race or by gender identity or by sexuality or whatever economic class, whatever it is, no one's represented. Okay? So for anybody to say that affirmative action isn't needed because racism, it's taken care of. They're going after, and by the way, if you're going to get rid of people getting into a college because of race, then you should get rid of the legacy program as well. And again, we'll go into it. Who are those people? Rich white men. My daddy went to Harvard. My daddy went to Yale. That should be done with.
By the way, another person another person of color who spouts that there's no racism in America, Candace Owen.
Candace Owen,
who went to Europe, married a rich white dude who was the son of a right-wing politician in England. Okay, now she's back here She's got a lot of money under her belt. And by the way, she's selling you, crazy people, her premium content so she can fill your head with bullshit. And she's making millions of dollars on you. Understand that. There's no racism for Candace Owen. She's got a lot of money.
And by the way, that is, again, prime propaganda. We talked about on the short show, Nazi Germany, and how they perfected propaganda. There are the right wing in this country. They're doing a lot of that right now. We'll touch on it in a few minutes. The bullshit that is being spread is amazing.
And it's right out of the 1930s Germany playbook.
It is. It is. So, okay, you're saying that okay, on one side you have conservatives or right wingers saying that racism is no longer a problem. You don't need affirmative action. And Deb just gave this one to me. It's not funny, okay, but it's absurd. It's freaking absurd. It really is. So this is from April 17th, 2023. It's an opinion piece from Florida Political Review. I don't see the author, but this is basically what it is. This is something that was proposed in February. I understand it's not going anywhere. That's not the point. The point is it was even allowed to be proposed. A legislative action called the Ultimate Cancel Act was brought to the Florida legislature by Republican Senator Blase Anguilla, Republican from Hernando, in February 2023, proposing to eliminate any political party that has previously supported slavery. Now, Florida was established in 1845. I actually checked. When considered from a historical perspective, this legislation targets the Florida Democratic Party. And this Republican is proposing that they deregister the Florida Democratic Party.
Nice try, buddy.
Yeah.
Nice
but wait
try.
a minute. I thought we were just told that racism isn't a problem. So
it's only a problem in Florida. Don't worry about it.
Only a problem in Florida from guys from the Civil War that have been dead for, over 100 years. Just saying. Meanwhile, an anti-Trump video shared by the DeSantis campaign is homophobic, says a conservative LGBT group. And I know you've talked about these guys before. What was it? The what's the name of them? The Log Cabin Republicans or something?
Yeah,
Do you
absurd.
know them?
That's an oxymoron. Any group could be a Republican group and be gay is just beyond my comprehension. They've been around forever, and I've been worried about them mentally forever. There's something wrong with people who can just even think about being a Republican and gay in the same breath. It's amazing to me.
This is simply gaslighting anyway. So it doesn't matter. No Republican is pro-gay in Florida.
By the way, let me also just say this. The conservative LGBT group, they're not pro-gay either. Because any group that is involved with this lot of Republicans cannot possibly have any self-respect. They don't care about their rights. They can't even get gay people into the platform, and they continue to be a conservative LGBTQ group.
Now this I understand is from Hillary Rodham Clinton's staff, but it's true. It's what he did.
Every single item.
June 11th, 2020. The real list of Trump's unprecedented steps for the LGBTQ community. Trump actually said he took unprecedented steps. Yes, he did, but not the way that.
They're not the ones that he wants you to think about.
Right. Number one, opposition to the Equality Act. Number two, appointed anti-LGBTQ judges, which is the opposite of what Biden did, by the way. Number 3, joked about Pence's desire to hang LGBTQ people in 2017. So this is workplace discrimination stuff. Supported employment discrimination against LGBTQ people, submitting amicus briefs to the U.S. Supreme Court supporting LGBTQ discrimination. Banned transgender service members from the military. Rolled back Obama-era non-discrimination policies. Issued rule to license discrimination. Trump's Department of Labor issued a regulation designed to allow federal contractors to claim a religious exemption to fire LGBTQ workers because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. Let that one sink in for a minute. Okay. Number 5, kicked out HIV people from the military because of their status. Instituted a deploy or get out policy, which removed military persons living with HIV from service solely because of their status. 6, created a hostile work environment for LGBTQ federal employees. 6 federal staffers have stated that they used to take off their wedding rings, put all their pictures away, all that stuff, because they were afraid of what was going to happen.
That's disgusting to me. I don't even.
Okay. In healthcare.
You know, I worked in a private company, right? I worked in a company that was one of the first corporations to sign on to the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. But yet my boss, who was hired, or actually who was transferred over to the United States from Europe, when we were going to a sales meeting and we were all allowed to take our significant others, he asked my wife fly on a separate plane.
Right.
So I actually refused to go to the sales meeting.
This, I don't know exactly what the Section 1557 rule is, but the Health and Human Services published a proposed major change to the administrative rule interpreting 1557 of the Affordable Care Act to remove explicit protections for LGBTQ people and healthcare programs and activities by excluding them from protections from discrimination based on sex stereotyping and gender identity.
It might mean that they weren't allowed to get health care because of that. That's an entirely possible.
Advocated for the elimination of the entire Affordable Care Act. This, wow, created a religious discrimination division. You can worship anything you want. That has nothing to do with what other people do in their lives. Okay.
You are literally licensing medical professionals and doctors and absolving them from the do no harm oath,
right?
Okay, by doing this. That is not okay.
They can refuse you care because they know you're gay and they happen to be Catholic or Baptist or whatever, and it's against their religion to serve you or to treat you. Come on. Proposed cutting over $1.3 billion from the PEPFAR budget. PEPFAR is the government program that fights AIDS abroad.
And by the way, that program was instituted by George Bush. PEPFAR. So that was actually instituted by W, a Republican.
So I know this is long, but I think this is important. This is about schools. Guidance for schools on transgender students. Departments of Education and Justice eliminated Obama-era guidance clarifying that schools must treat transgender students consistent with their gender identity. encouraging school officials to permit harassment of transgender students, deny access to facilities consistent with gender identity, and refuse to use correct names and pronouns, all inflicting untold emotional harm. Now, we mentioned in our other show this week of someone who they were accused of a crime, and it looks like they did it, and she is transgender and transitioned. These articles refuse. It kept on saying he. I mean, come on. You should prosecute somebody, but what is the? I don't understand not recognizing someone's pronoun. And when you're a child who's done nothing wrong, by the way, and it's tough enough being a kid trying to figure out who you are, to not be recognized for who you want to be. Number 2, rejected complaints from transgender students. Refused to respond to civil complaints filed by transgender students, including those who were barred from transgender bathrooms. This increased the burden for transgender students to combat harmful policies. 3, suggested it's acceptable for schools to discriminate against LGBTQ students while accepting taxpayer funds. Number 4, sexual assault. Betsy DeVos rescinded Title IX rules related to schools' obligations to address sexual harassment, including sexual violence. DeVos increased the standard of proof from preponderance of the evidence to clear and convincing evidence, making it more difficult for survivors of sexual assault to obtain justice.
She was a disgusting pig. I really, honestly.
Number 5, eliminated language protecting LGBTQ children participating in the 4-H program.
How low can you go?
Number 9, use Title IX to discriminate against trans students. Now, there's also housing, families, representation. I'm not reading all of these in the world. I mean,
we're encouraging all of you to read all of them.
Read all of it. I wanted to get through to the schools because guess what? We're going to talk about school representation because it is important. Remember, I mean, I understand. You can say, oh, it's just Florida. No, it's not, because anything that happens in Florida is going to happen in other states that have right-wing majority. So if you remember, Andrew Warren, I said Adam in the other show too. Andrew Warren, apologies, is putting a lawsuit against DeSantis for unlawful termination or unwarranted termination. So he was a suspended Hillsborough state attorney for making certain comments, for saying he wouldn't aggressively pursue charges revolving around bike crimes and revolving around abortion, which, by the way, those laws weren't in place at the time that he made those comments. And DeSantis preemptively fired him for dereliction of duty. And they're currently in a court fight right now. So because the court said that even though DeSantis violated Andrew Warren's rights, that judge couldn't overturn it. They gave DeSantis more license to remove superintendents. GOP-leaning school boards in Florida remove 3 superintendents because they had a majority there. Okay. And when you remove superintendents, oh, there was another one. I guess I lost it. There was a teacher who was removed, fired by a Florida superintendent because she had a safe space rainbow sticker on her door.
Fuck.
Okay. I'll put that in there.
Why don't we just put a hatchet in there instead?
Right.
So they understand they're not safe.
So when Florida did that, now Texas planning to out its school board. Okay. So this is extending beyond governors. If you remember the Tennessee 3 who were removed by a supermajority in Tennessee, Biden thanked the Tennessee 3 for standing up. They were actually reinstated. And we also have.
And what did they do? They stood up for gun legislation.
Right.
Okay. They were responding to their constituents.
We also have Zooey Zephyr, who was responding to bans on gender affirming care. Okay. Stating that legislators are going to have blood on their hands, and she was physically removed from the chamber. Okay, she could still vote and blah blah blah. She was taken off committees, all this stuff, but
She was forced to vote from the hallway.
Forced to vote from the hallways.
And by the way, let me just tell you what. I think they removed her because she is transgender. That's what I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is an important case because you know that John Testa is running, and what I'm hearing is that the GOP is trying to tie him to the radicals of Montana, the Democratic radicals, and he's going to try to tie Testa to Zooey Zephyr because they're radical, and
I'm going to tell you right now, John Testa should stand up for Zooey Zephyr, regardless.
We will say I haven't seen anything about what he is saying. I will update people as this goes along. He absolutely should, and I don't see why he wouldn't, because one of the things that he is really for is unionization, and unionization is about representing everyone.
Right.
Okay. So Dave, why, oh, here it is. It was just, there we go. I want to go back to it for a minute. So is this a school board ousted a teacher over pro-LGBTQ rainbow stickers? Wow. Dave, why is this such a big deal? Well, when you have a GOP supermajority, somebody gets voted in that the GOP doesn't like. Now they're going to try to remove them before they even get in. Wisconsin GOP supermajority already looking to impeach newly elected liberal Supreme Court judge. As soon as they saw that she won, they're looking to get rid of her. It's Prziewicz.
I don't think that'll happen, to be honest with you.
It's not going to happen, but just the sheer fact that it could go to a vote
exactly
is unconscionable. Here's the thing. With Wisconsin right now has a Democratic governor. I should have even had to look that up. So hold on. Tony Evers. Okay. But what would happen if they actually did have a Republican?
Right.
Human rights should not be, or representation should not be based on who's in office at the time.
Right.
The people elected this woman. She should be allowed, barring criminal activity or something to that nature, she should be allowed to run and do her job. So here's couple things to just tie this up. I wanted to mention this, and I told Deb I was going to mention it. Of all things that the Republican Party is trying to paint Hakeem Jeffries as, remember, the Republican Party has seditionists in it. Okay? Remember how many are in the House? Just remember all that. Now, I understand this is from a right-wing rag, but I'm putting it in there for a reason. This is the bullshit that they're spinning. The Republicans and right-wing papers and Fox News and all of that, they're calling Hakeem Jeffries an election denier because he complained that due to Russian interference and due to voter suppression, that those were factors, and that Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote and all of that. Okay. Should he have said it? He has a right to say what he wants to say. Did he try to overthrow Trump's administration?
Nope.
He did not. Okay. He did not.
By the way, I'd like to add one thing to the list of factors that kept Hillary Clinton from winning. Low Democratic Party voter turnout.
Right.
Let me just say that right now. I'm an election denier. Okay. Do I think there was Russian interference in the 2016 election? Absolutely. I absolutely do. And I believe a lot of people succumbed to that Russian propaganda that was all over Facebook, Twitter, and other social media outlets. I absolutely do. Do I think there's voter suppression? We have proof of that.
Right.
He's not an election denier. He's just stating actual facts.
Now hold on one second. They got to go through an ad first, but I wanted to show you this article from Time. I don't completely agree with this article because they're saying that it's spin and it's political. I'm not going into whether Hakeem Jeffries is right or wrong. I'm going to address why the Republican Party is saying this in the first place. Okay. The reason they're saying it in the first place is right here. House Democrats pick top leadership that includes 0 white men. That's why.
Exactly.
To me, that's perfect right there. So, one more thing I wanted to.
Woman on the right.
Yep.
Woman on the right is a badass. She is my.
Who was that? Whitmer? Who was that?
Catherine Clark. She's
right. So I wanted to mention this too. Oh, what is this? Stop it. Go away. Go away.
Just click on that continue without supporting thing.
I am. There we go. But I am supporting you, crooks and liars, because I'm showing the article. One of the things that an administration can do to represent all people is to support union activity and support unions in general. So this, I don't know when, there we go. June 24th, very, very recent, by Susie Madrak. Okay, this is from Crooks and Liars. Quietly, the Biden administration gets it done for rail workers. 4 days of sick. Okay. People were complaining, oh, Biden, Biden isn't doing anything. He's anti-union, blah, blah, blah. He went behind the scenes. He pressured rail companies to provide sick/administrative leave, or not administrative, sorry, either sick leave, or they can convert it to personal days if they don't use it. Okay, I don't know what they can bank or any of that stuff, but the point being is Biden didn't forget about these people. Okay, and he also didn't point to them and go, okay, well, you're going to get so and so many days because you're a white man, and you're going to get 2 less because you're black or Latino or transgender or gay. He didn't do that. This is representation. All right. I understand it's the rail workers, but this shows that he's willing to work with unions.
And by the way, the Biden administration has been talking about all workers getting some form of earned sick time. And you know what? That does not happen unless there is a changeover in the government composition. The GOP will never support that.
He was able to work behind the scenes. That's why he didn't make a big deal out of it or put an executive order out or any of that nonsense, because he would be challenged in the courts. He worked with the rail companies, okay, and helped put a little bit of pressure on them, and this got done. Kudos to the people working, then kudos to Biden for doing what he, whatever he was able to do. Meantime, who is Donald Trump representing? This is just a breaking news and updates list for Donald Trump. Okay. South Carolina rally. That video shared by the DeSantis campaign. Trump and DeSantis courts Moms for Liberty, which Deb and I want to talk about at some point. They're a really dangerous group, actually. Judge rejects Donald Trump's request to toss out defamation claims by columnist E. Jean Carroll. 3 Trojan insider trading case related to taking Trump media firm public, accused of making $22 million. Trump's GOP support dips, blah, blah, blah. A jury found Trump responsible for sexual abuse. Now he's suing his accuser for saying she was raped. Who is he? Who is he representing? Himself, and Christian extremist groups, which turns around and supports him.
Whatever they are, Moms for Liberty, is that what they're called?
Yes.
Not a grassroots organization. They are well funded. We're going to get to that. We're going to dig and find out who some of their benefactors are, but they are so far from being a grassroots organization. It's unbelievable.
And again, one of the things that the Republicans have done over time is try to infiltrate the school systems and say, we are representing you because look at what the teachers are doing and look at what, they're poisoning your kids, blah, blah, blah. I know from being in the school system, parents can, for the most part, like math, reading, some form of reading skills, those are required. But if you have a problem with the reading material or whatever, it's the teacher's job and it's the school's job to make sure that there's appropriate material for your kid. If you tell the teacher, I don't want my child reading this, they will find an alternative for you. If there are programs that you don't want your child to be involved in, you have every right to not have your child involved in them. This idea, this Moms for Liberty and the parental rights and all of that, just because you don't want your kid involved in a program doesn't mean that none of the kids should be involved. Now, do I believe that anti-bullying and cultural diversity should be part of stuff? Yeah, I do. But there are bigoted parents out there who don't want their kids to be part of that.
Then opt out.
Then they have a right to opt out.
You know what? Opt out. You know what? You want your kid to really receive a Christian education? The answer isn't to force public schools to teach or pray. The answer is you pull your kid out of that school and send it to a private religious school like my parents did.
Right.
My mother wanted me to get a Catholic education. I went to 1 year of public school because there was no room in that Catholic school. And then I went to Catholic school for the rest of the time. You know what? Right. That was what my mother did. My mother didn't raise a stink. Get all a bunch of women together, demand that the whole school system changes for me. Stop it. Okay. Get over yourselves.
By the way, representative. Okay. It's very difficult for Biden to deal with some of this because it's very different. It's very difficult to tolerate intolerant people. It really is. Okay. And by the way, we don't have to. I know that I've seen it in some of the Facebook groups that we're in and all that. And Deb's like, yeah, I blocked this one and I blocked that one. Oh, we have to see both sides. No, we don't.
We're done. We're done. I already posted. I'm not going to talk to MAGA people anymore. They're irredeemable. They can't be reasoned with. The discussion is over. There's nothing to discuss. There is nothing in fascism that serves anybody. I don't have to talk to them. They don't have to have a venue on my timeline or in my groups. We don't allow it. It's as simple as that. This isn't a political discussion. This is democracy or fascism at this point. We know where we are, okay? If you don't know where we are, then you should figure it out.
Right.
So, I can't hold your hand too much longer. We have shit to do between now and November.
The amount of stuff that...
No, I'm going to sound like George Bush here. You're either with us on democracy or you're with them on fascism. That's exactly where we are.
And if you can't see it, the demonization of minorities, by the way, the demonization of anybody who doesn't agree with you, for a politician in Florida to even suggest getting rid of another party. Okay. By the way, after all the racist, homophobic bullshit that the Florida GOP has pulled, he's trying to flim-flam. Talk about, fascist propaganda bullshit. Well, the Democratic Party is rooted in slavery.
Well, right now, the GOP is rooted in slavery.
Slavery, yep.
Fascism, okay? Let's not go over ancient history. The Democrats moved away from that eons ago. All right, they've left that all to the GOP. Christo-fascism is all the GOP now. So, you know what? I don't want to hear that bullshit.
And I do want to look into what Nikki Fried is doing, see if she's combating some of this and how they're doing in the Florida DNC and maybe how they're doing in the Texas DNC. Those are battles that are going to take decades. And I know that, I understand that. But I think that there is a way to fight back for basic rights. Texas is going to be tough in regards to gun legislation. I get that. But everything else you don't just give up on Texas because of that.
I think there are actually average citizens in Texas who are now looking at things differently. I really do. After all the shootings there, I really do. I think that needs to be explored. I think Georgia is a swing state and can be a swing state. I'm not saying Marjorie Taylor Greene's area, but a lot of Georgia is not deep red. It isn't. That's a myth. Okay. I think Florida was a swing state until DeSantis. That can be changed. They need to find someone to run against Rick Scott. They need to get him out.
And again, I didn't really mention Rick Scott. I was gonna throw something in there, but Rick Scott, who said that basically the Democrats aren't welcome in Florida. That's basically what he said. Right. Socialists and communists aren't.
Yeah, communists and socialists aren't welcome in Florida. Well,
which is basically, guess what?
You just stay in Florida by yourself because fascists aren't welcome anywhere else.
Right.
By the way, when he's referring to socialism, he's referring to people who need Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I'd like to remind everybody that Rick Scott presided over the biggest Medicare fraud scandal when he was president of HCA Columbia, or CEO rather, of HCA Columbia, and they flim-flammed the government out of millions of dollars, and the board forced him to step down.
How much did he get? 300 million, 400 million?
He walked away with, I believe, $3 million, 300, I don't know. He got $300 million worth of stock.
Right.
He got $5 million in a severance package, and he also got 5 years of consulting at about $960,000 a pop a year. He took ownership for what he did. All right. What he did was take fucking Florida to the freaking
cleaners.
Yeah, to the cleaners. Okay. And he talks about socialism. Well, you know what? What we had there was capitalism on steroids. Okay.
Wasn't he treasurer of the Republican or the RNC in Florida or something?
And he wanted to know where all that money went to.
Right. Well, where did it all go? Where did it all go, Rick?
That, and they still put him in charge of the money. Okay. Right. What the fuck? I mean, what?
Meanwhile, he's at a Taco Bell going crazy, and they're like, "Where the fuck the money go?" Rick,
it's unbelievable, unbelievable. They're so in your face, and there are still people who can't see it, and they're right in your face doing it.
It's
Lord Voldemort. He looks like Lord Voldemort.
We were so, and by the way, look, again, the system will never be perfect. It's always going to be somewhat flawed, but this has to be rolled back. If you are in your 20s and your 30s and you want some semblance of this country without fascism, got to get rid of these people. You do.
It only gets worse from here. It only gets worse from here. It's not going to get any better without making this change.
I understand, people used to say conversation will get derailed the moment you mention Hitler and Nazi Germany. Well, we're here because the parallels are insane to the propaganda that's been put out by the right wing and the Christo-fascist right and the Nazi Germany. And again, information being suppressed, people being suppressed, you're not having access to books on the history of Roberto Clemente or Martin Luther King Jr. or I don't even care, Malcolm
Rosa
X,
Parks,
whoever.
Rosa
Parks.
What the fuck?
I mean, come on.
That picture, folks. Book burning, book banning is right out of Nazi Germany. Right out of Nazi Germany playbook. It's not a joke. Okay? In the state of Illinois, the governor signed a bill to prevent book banning. People are doing this as a preemptive measure to prevent it from happening.
And by the way, First Amendment where is the First Amendment right now?
Your inability, if you're not going to tell me taking away the right for transgender people, or not even transgender people, but drag shows. Drag shows have been around forever. That's an infringement on people's First Amendment rights. They have a right to perform, and people have a right to attend. What the fuck is wrong here? You don't
By
want
the way,
a drag show? Don't go to a drag show.
right. This show is the day before Independence Day. Tell me that everybody's free to do what they want as a consenting adult. They're not.
No, they're not.
Not right now.
Nope. Wake up and smell the pizza, folks.
And it smells like shit right now.
All right, kids, we done?
Yeah, we're done.
We'll be back at you later.